86% of organizations value professionals that upskill to advance their careers. It's never too late. Enroll for a self-paced online course to begin upskilling in monitoring, evaluation, accountability and learning, water, sanitation and hygiene, disaster risk reduction and management, food security and nutrition in emergencies, procurement and supply chain management, human nutrition and dietetics, maternal and infant young child nutrition. Apply today to enjoy a 10% discount.
Hello everyone once again, and welcome to today's webinar. As I did mention, today's webinar is Effective Fundraising Strategies in the 21st Century. This is a free webinar offered to you by Humanitarian Global. And as I did mention earlier, I encourage you to share the link with your colleagues and your friends as well. Today's key speaker will be Jashon, who is a fundraising expert. Before we begin, we can start with a few salutations. So thank you so much for those of us who are reaching out through the chat section. I do see your salutations. I see Obadiah from Nigeria. I see Abdelrazak from Somalia. I see Oyen. I see Aya, Indigo from Mozambique. I see so many people. I see James. Hello, James. Edgar. Paul from Nigeria as well. We do have quite a number of participants. Kaguriro from DRC, welcome so much. I can't mention everyone, but welcome so much. Welcome, Sega. Thank you so much for the salutations. And I hope that you'll be able to make the most out of this webinar. Hello to everyone else also joining us on Facebook Live, and I do welcome you to this webinar. Remember, today's topic for the day is Effective Fundraising Strategies in the 21st Century, and our expert for the day is Jashon. He is a fundraising expert. With that said, I'd like to welcome the team to say hello. So I'll start with Sheila. Sheila, you can say hello to everyone.
Thank you so much, Dana. Hi, everyone. As you've been told, my name is Sheila. I'm also part of the academics team, and I do look forward to great interactions and learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheila. We do have our expert with us, our key speaker for the day. I'll just bring him on to say hello before we proceed. Jashon, you can say hello.
Hello to everyone. So glad to be here. My name is CP Jashon, and I'll be taking us through the session today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of our other colleagues who are working hard behind the scenes, that is Ian, Brian, Anthony, I do send their salutations, or I do send salutations on their behalf. So before we dive into today's webinar, I'd like to mention a few house rules. House rule number 1, I encourage everyone to engage us in the chat section. Starting with, we already started with the salutations. So in case if you're interested in any of the courses that Humanitarian Global does offer, I encourage you to share with us your contact details. Remember, only the panelists are able to see your contact details. And this is share your name, your email address, and your phone number, and our team will be able to reach out to you and assist you in terms of learning more about the courses that we do offer, as well as enrolling you to the different courses and training workshops that we do have. In the same thing in the chat section, in case if you're encountering any technical difficulties, do let us know in the chat section. We'll be able to assist you in case if you have any queries that are not related to today's topic. Also do engage us in the chat section. We'll be able to assist you. House rule number 2 is in regards to the Q&A section. So at the end of Jashon's presentation, he will have a session on question and answer. And for this, we will be putting our questions in the Q&A section, and we will be able to respond to them during the Q&A section. At the same time, during the Q&A session, We will request participants who wish to ask their questions live during the webinar to raise their hands, and we'll allow them to speak. So kindly refrain from raising your hand throughout the presentation, as we might not be able to engage you at that moment. In case of anything, like I've mentioned, put it in the chat section, or alternatively, if it's in regards to the presentation on today's topic. Remember, today's topic is effective fundraising strategies in the 21st century. So if it's in regard to that, put it in the Q&A section, and Jashon will be able to respond to your question at the end of his presentation. With that said, I believe we can proceed, and we will all be able to stick to the house rules that I just mentioned. But before we do get into today's topic, I do have a few things to mention. That is on the courses and the training workshops that are coming up in the last couple of months of this year. So we have a number of training workshops that are ongoing, which include WASH, that is water sanitation hygiene. We have on SBCC, this is on social and behavior change communication. We have a lot on when it comes to data collection, analysis, and visualization, which includes data collection for humanitarians. This is using Kobo Toolbox and Open Data Kit, that's ODK, as well as data analytics and visualization using SPSS and Power BI. We have training workshops on MIL, that is monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. And we have a lot of training workshops that are related to project and program management, as well as humanitarian development and aid work, which include fundraising and resource mobilization for NGOs, writing winning proposals and report writing for donor-funded projects, as well as leadership and project management for NGOs and development organization training workshops. So the last three that I've mentioned are the ones that Jashon will sort of touch on during today's webinar. For now, allow me just to speak a little bit more on fundraising and resource mobilization, as well as writing proposals and reports. So when it comes to fundraising and resource mobilization for NGOs, this training workshop suits anyone who works in the development aid and humanitarian fields, and someone who's looking also to transition to this, because remember, resource mobilization is a skill that is required for someone who's working in NGOs, because through fundraising, you're able to sustain the work that you're currently doing, the programs and the projects that you're currently doing in the NGOs, or it could be international organizations as well. So just to mention the dates for this upcoming training, this is the physical training workshop will take 5 days, and it will be held in Nairobi at the Humanitarian Global Training Center. This is from the 6th to 10th of November. So this is next week. And the online one, the upcoming online one, will be 2 weeks, 10 days, that is 2 hours a day in the evenings. And it will be from the 6th to the 17th of November this year. To talk more about what you can expect while undertaking the training workshops is you get to understand the concepts of fundraising, and like I did mention, their importance when it comes to NGOs, because this is what sustains your programs, your projects. It is also what sustains your human capital to an extent. Then you get to learn how to create plans when it comes to fundraising, because remember, everything starts with a plan. So you get to learn about SMART objectives and how to plan around that when it comes to fundraising. You get to also understand the organization's capacity and what is needed and the activities that will lead to effective and successful fundraising. You get to understand the donor cycle. Remember, there's always a donor cycle that goes on, and you get to understand how to tailor your engagement, your strategies, as well as the activities that you're going to be undertaking in fundraising to the donors. Okay, you get to learn how to meet also donor expectations on the same, and a lot more, including learning more on legal and ethical compliances when it comes to fundraising. To look at the training program, so just a bit of an overview as to what to expect to learn. Okay, like I did mention, you get to understand concepts of fundraising, and this will be the first steps: introduction to fundraising, types of funding sources, key stakeholder fundraising. So when you look at these training outline, you see, even without a background in fundraising or how NGOs work, you're able to get into this training workshop, because we start with the basics, we start with the introductions, and from there we build on to that. So even without a background in working in NGOs, without a background in humanitarian development or aid work, you're able to easily get onto these training workshops and understand on the concepts as we go on. Then from there, once you've had a grasp of the concepts when it comes to fundraising, you get to learn about strategy and planning when it comes to fundraising. Like I did mention, every fundraising needs a strategy, needs a plan, it needs a goal. You need to have SMART objectives, and that is what we're going to be learning in the second session. And then from there, you're going to be learning about fundraising techniques and channels, as there are very many different ones. There's such as online fundraising, events and campaigns that you do organize. There's gift and donor cultivations as well. And then there's storytelling and communication, where you talk about multimedia services come into play here, and you talk about the different, the reasons as to why you're seeking funds. You're able to reach out to a greater audience through this storytelling and communication. You're going to be shown how to do it, as well as creating grants and proposals or the same. Then you're going to move on to session 4, building and maintaining donor relationships. So remember, as you start fundraising, you're also networking. And through networking, you get to do what is known as donor acquisition, donor retention, okay? And this is quite important, because fundraising in NGOs, it's not a one-off thing. As you continue with your project cycles, you will require several rounds of fundraising. So that is why it is important to have not only donor acquisition, but donor retention. And you're going to be taught how to manage their data, those databases. You're going to learn also about compliance, reporting, and measuring impact. Like I did mention, there's a lot of compliance when it comes to donors, because donors have different requirements based on even what you're fundraising for. You're going to be looking at legal and ethical compliances, as well as budgeting and financial management when it comes to fundraising, and impact and measurement, as well as monitoring and evaluation of the activities and the fundraising services that you've undertaken, as well as how impactful they were. That is what you're going to be learning while undertaking this training. And at the very end, you're going to receive a digital certification. This is a digital badge, which is issued by HPAS on behalf of Humanitarian Global. So HPAS is an organization that accredits other organizations such as Humanitarian Global that do offer trainings in the humanitarian development and aid field. And the reason for us using HPAS, other than them certifying us, is because this then opens up your marketability to potential recruiters, where there is a database on anyone who's been issued any training on any certificate on HPAS is included in this database. And for potential recruiters, in this case, all they'll come and do is just search fundraising and resource mobilization. And if you do have a certificate in this workshop, in this training, your name is then populated. So that is basically how HPAS works. And this is the fundraising and resource mobilization for NGOs training workshop. I have mentioned the dates. I'll just mention them briefly again. The physical one is from 6th to 10th November, that is next week, and it will cost $750. The online one is from 6th to 17th November, and it costs $500. I'll talk briefly, very briefly, about the other course that I had mentioned, which is writing winning proposals and report writing for donor-funded projects, okay? So this one also goes hand in hand with the fundraising and resource mobilization training. And the dates for this one is from 13th to 15th of November, a 3-day workshop. This one costs $500. This will be a physical workshop. And there is the 20th to 24th November, 5 days, that is 1 week. This will be around 2 hours a day, and it will cost $250. It will be offered via a virtual classroom. This is via Zoom. I'll talk about just a bit of the objectives, because here, basically what we want you to do is, at the end of this training, you should be able to effectively write a proposal and a report, okay? So you learn the organization and the different components of a proposal and its logical flow, how it should flow, as well as the different frameworks, such as the theory of change, which are used in proposal and report writing, as well as monitoring and evaluation frameworks, which are used in report writing. Because just to mention, proposals are written towards the beginning or before a project is done. That is more or less the plan, the concept of the project. And then the reports are written towards the end or at the very end of your project, where now you're reporting on what you were able to achieve on this project. So that is what you can expect to achieve at the end of the training. And just to mention a little bit on the training program, like I did mention, you will learn an introduction as usual. So don't worry if you have no background information on proposals and report writing. You'll be able to seamlessly enter this class and be able to understand from the introduction all the way to the very end of the course. You'll learn writing a proposal, like I did mention, and then finally, you'll have proposal and report writing best practices. So I really wanted to talk about this because we're going to be encountering a lot of examples on proposals, successful proposals, and we're going to be encountering a lot of examples of how projects were able to be carried out, okay, through successful proposal writing. We're also going to look at, based on the best practices, we're going to look at case studies and look at tips for successful proposal writing, okay? So like I did mention in the other training, that you will receive a digital certification. This is a digital badge upon completion of your training. For you to register, simply come and click on register. For instance, here on the page, we will be sharing these links with our participants. And what you get is a training workshop registration form. Kindly fill in your details, and especially when it comes to the training program you wish to undertake, okay? So ensure to fill that in. And once you've done that, fill in the training delivery mode. So for instance, it could be online. So ensure to fill in those two details and submit. Once you've submitted, our team will be able to reach out to you and assist you in terms of making payments and enrolling for the training workshops. Like I've mentioned, we are sharing all these details in the chat section. So look out for the links, and I encourage you to register. In case if you're not able to click on the link or register today, you can share your details with us and we will be able to assist you. With that said, I'd like to bring on Jashon to talk about today's topic. It's quite an interesting one: effective fundraising strategies in the 21st century. With that, I do welcome Jason. Jason, over to you. Jashon, can you hear us? You're muted.
Hi, Diana. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much, and for allowing me to take this. So we're going to take the next remaining minutes to the top of the hour to talk about effective fundraising strategies for the 21st century, and allow me to put up my screen to that regard so that we can be able to then progress. all those stakeholders who work in the humanitarian and development agencies, the reason for which you'd want to conduct a fundraising is to be able to help support your programs or projects, depending on what it is you're working at. You want to seek out to people who either share the same aspirations as to what you do in the humanitarian agency, to be able to either bring sanity or dignity or help out other people who might be dealing with emergencies or issues here and there. So then you call on to people who probably are facing or who share the concerns that you do, to be able to pull in together resources that can then elevate your capacities to be able to support whatever programs or projects you are running with. And in a world that is competitive and where there are so many humanitarian agencies all scrambling for the very donors or sponsors that we're having, it is important then that you make your fundraising appeal to be effective, so that for every initiative you take to be able to raise funds or to raise resources, you are able to get as much as you may need to be able to allow you to be actually able to execute your plans as they were. So we're going to take some minutes to discuss some of the strategies you want to take on to ensure that this works out well. Now, in getting started, just a quick overview. Fundraising will be all the processes, initiatives, actions that you will take to ensure that you're able to make voluntarily those persons, those corporates, those individuals who are willing to be able to help you pull together the resources that you're looking for as a non-profit institution, to be able to help you carry out your day-to-day activities as you foresee them. This will be achieved by either engaging individuals, like we indicated, by engaging businesses or corporates, by engaging other charitable foundations or institutions, and in some instances, even governmental agencies who are willing. So this is done on the basis of willingness and not coercion, and it is not mandatory that these institutions have to support. So it is not uncommon in the humanitarian agencies then to find that in 1 year or in one period run, you have the support of 1 to 3 institutions, and when that duration ends or when that project ends, they pull out their resources or they cease from continuing to support your programs. So then it is necessary for the persons in these humanitarian and development agencies to always ensure that they have a pool of individuals, partners, sponsors who are willing to continue supporting them, but hence the essence of discussing fundraising strategies. This will cover both the dimensions, fundraising covers both the dimensions of donor acquisition and donor retention. Now, while most organizations and most humanitarian agencies put their focus on donor acquisition, it is actually intimated that organizations should actually focus much of their time on donor retention. Just like retaining your staff in the organization, it is easier to retain a sponsor or a donor or an individual who is willing to work and support your programs. It is easier to retain such an individual or such a corporate than it is to acquire anyone. While many organizations oversee or overlook the essence of going to the efforts of ensuring they have retained an existing sponsor or donor, they only feel the effects when the said individuals or corporates actually pull out their support. That is when the program starts crumbling or the programs can no longer run, which then means that the targeted individuals that were benefiting from this program now can no longer be supported. That is when organizations actually see the need to continue retaining, to find strategies to retain the existing pool of individuals who support the programs. So then it is necessary that for all individuals and stakeholders that work in these humanitarian and development agencies, even as you work towards seeking and growing your pool of persons and partners who will support your programs, you also execute strategies that help to retain the ones already in our pool. And we'll be speaking about that in a while. So then moving on, you might want to consider doing a fundraiser for 2 main reasons. either you're trying to raise resources for your operational expenditures. This is items like, being able to sustain the projects that you're already running, whether you want to think of it as you're giving out free toiletries, or you're assisting students who are struggling with education, whether it's bringing in medication to the poor and the vulnerable, whatever it is, you want to seek operational expenditures to be able to either sustain the projects that you're running on a day-to-day. Of course, all humanitarian agencies will be having an angle or an inclination to what it is they're focusing on of the many societal inequities that we have around. So then you will be seeking to either find resources to sustain the said projects, or to be able to pay or to remunerate the people that you are working with on the project, or to be able to handle your overall company overheads, electricity, rent, water bills, and the rest of that. The other type of fundraiser could be the one focused at being able to raise capital expenses. You want to either do constructions, or you want to buy equipment, or you want to get some supplies, or you are at the very start of your humanitarian journey, and you are just about starting up, and you want to get seed capital to be able to get started. So those are the two angles for which a fundraiser would be called upon. Either you are ongoing and you're trying to either raise operational capital, or you're trying to raise capital for purposes, or you're trying to raise resources for purposes of capital expenditure. That being said then, so what are some of the major donation sources that we find ourselves with? So many times we have largely individual or corporate donors. So this would be persons or institutions that we have been able to convince, or that have been able to buy into our story of what it is we are helping to deal with in the society, and they're willing enough to want to chip in to see us run the said programs in the shared spirit that they share a soft spot for what it is we're doing. So this could be either individuals in their own capacities, and we have so many individuals we can speak about, starting with the greats like Bill Gates and the rest, or corporate donors. This is where institutions share into the shared values of a humanitarian agency and to support their projects in one way or the other. Then we have grants from agencies or foundations. So then we have institutions whose sole purpose has been to continue supporting, to support projects that they resonate with. So they will identify a project that sits in line with what it is that they believe in. So if an organization, for instance, if their role, or if they imagine that their role is to help further or accelerate education programs in a neighborhood or in the society, then it will be easy for them to want to support individuals or humanitarian agencies that are working in that sphere for purposes of being able to support them. So this could be in the form of issuing of grants, or opening up foundations which then continually support individuals and organizations that are operating in the field. We could have other cases that are corporate engagements or events. So where a humanitarian agency might opt to curate an event or an engagement forum where people come together for purposes of attending an event, but the main aim is to be able to raise the resources that are required, whether it's by paying the ticket fees, or buying a plate of their meal, or after the meal being able to conduct a fundraiser at the end of the event for purposes of being able to boost the resources that they are then channeled towards the organization's achievement of whatever it is they're looking for. We could have bequests. So we have either individuals or organizations who draft up a will or dedicate an amount, many times significantly, an amount which then, if for individuals at either the time of their demise, then a will is written on behalf of the institutions that they would want to support, so that in the unfortunate event that they pass on, then their wealth, their resources are channeled towards being able to support the programs that were close to their heart. And we've seen a lot of bequests coming up, especially when celebrities or, the wealthy who are philanthropists in their own nature, as and when they die. Also, organizations have also opted to do this. If, for instance, you're closing down your operations, then organizations might be having a clause or might opt as a board resolution that as and when we decide to close our doors, then either all our equipment or the resources we have or the financial capital will be remaining with will be channeled towards being able to support or to assist this kind of organization or these institutions that deal with the kind of social inequity that we imagine there is and that we're willing to help support in. Then the other donation source that is common is sales or services or earned services. So a humanitarian agency or a development agency might opt in the push to raise or to show up additional resources for purposes of being able to run their programs and projects. They might pick on an activity to be able to provide it commercially to the population. So this might be a good that is being sold or a service that is being sold. But of course, the selling price would be inflated slightly in the understanding that they're trying to actually raise they're trying to raise capital, or they're trying to raise resources for purposes of being able to continue their day-to-day operations as a humanitarian agency. So the persons who will then be committing to buy or to consume of the goods or services that are being offered will be doing that in the full understanding that while the price might be slightly higher than what you'd find of the same product or service in the open market, it is actually a show of support towards whatever activities or whatever projects and programs that this humanitarian agency is actually running. So then that makes it an easy buy, so that as opposed to other fundraising strategies where you only give with nothing in return, in this case, you are actually given something in return, which is the good or service for which you're buying for, even if at a slightly inflated price margin. Then you want to ask yourself then the main question, how then do you draft yourself up appropriately so that you are selected among so many other people who are seeking the same funding opportunities that you're looking for? It is imperative for me to tell you that you are not the only one who will be seeking to be supported of your projects and programs. Your organization is not the only one that will submit their bid for funding or for sponsorship or for partnership. Then what it is that you want to do as an organization, or how do you want to prepare yourself as an institution so that among other people or among other organizations that are up for consideration, your case stands tall? How do you make yourself, or how do you elevate yourself so that your case is easier to win the race ahead of the others? So why should you be selected? That should always be a question that is at the back of your mind whenever you are opting to draft up or to write an application or to submit a proposal for purposes of funding. So one, you want to ask yourself, as you seek out in your strategies to fundraise, how are you different? What makes you different from every other person or every other institution that is out there asking for funds? If you are looking across websites for organizations that, let's say, are supporting the girl child in being able to access a safer and a more dignified menstrual health, then you will find you are not the only institution doing that. If you are trying to feed a child, if you are trying to educate an orphan, you are not going to be the only organization that is doing that. So then what makes your case appeal more to me, who is a potential donor or partner or willing to join into your fundraising drive? What makes your case stronger than the other person who's also doing the same thing? So then you want to ensure that, one, you package your message in a way that stands out. So as you're talking about what it is you're doing, try to remove the story away from you. So if, for instance, you wanted to you are doing a feeding program for orphans in the in your neighborhood, rather than asking people something like, help us build a kitchen, you'd rather make the story or spin the story to be about the benefit that you're actually creating. So you could say something like, help us feed a child, help us feed an orphan, when the ideal end game is that you get resources to be able to build the kitchen, which then enables you to be able to prepare the meals, which eventually helps you to feed that orphan. If your story is help us build a kitchen, then people would be wondering, how is that a priority? But when you make it look like something like help us feed an orphan, then your case gets the emotional appeal that we are looking for, and it is easier for me, who is either an orphan or has interacted with an orphan or who has learned, to be able to quickly buy into the story and really want to come in and join together to really help you feed an orphan, which you eventually get to do when you have that kitchen and is able to prepare those meals. So differentiate yourself from the other players by, one, taking a unique product or a unique offering in the humanitarian agency. There's a lot of open gaps that we can plug into by also marketing or by also packaging your message in a way that creates the visual and emotional appeal that we are looking for, so that me and any other potential donor who is out there will clearly and quickly see your story and really want to jump onto it. Then number two, you want to ensure that you have a bigger picture than yourself. So do not focus on this is what we have done, this is what we are planning to do. No, try to think of what is bigger than yourself. So yes, while you're out there trying to feed these orphans, what is the ultimate goal? What exactly are we working towards? You might want to take a curve and remind the potential donors how whatever it is you're doing is fitting into the development goals, the UN development goals that we're having, whatever goal number it is that you imagine your objectives as an organization is fitting into. Then that makes it easier for people to see that you are actually not doing this just for yourself. You're doing this for a greater picture or for the greater good of the society and of everyone rather than for you. So try to make the story not really about yourself, but about have a bigger picture than yourself. Ensure that you illustrate your feats or your strengths. Ensure that you speak about what it is that you have already done. If it is your website, ensure you have a website that captures all the good that you've done so far. It is easier for an individual or for a corporate to want to support your ongoing projects if already you can illustrate what you have done before. This then would mean that in the startup of your humanitarian journey, then you might want, of course, to use a little bit of owner-created funds that are generated from within rather than outside, so that you can, for starters, be able to show for what it is that you have done. And when you're writing this story about your strengths and your findings and your fit, you do not want to write group stories. So rather than going out and saying we have fed 20 or 50 or 100,000 children, you want to take the case of that one child who was really malnourished and on the verge of collapse, and you pick them up and you fed them and, probably have them tell a story or be able to show their story so that people can actually resonate. But when you go about telling the numbers, we have fed 10 people, then the story is a little less compelling. Of course, it makes sense, but ensure that you can isolate individual cases that you have tactically handled, which can show then to your prowess in whatever it is you say you are doing in the humanitarian field. So of course, show the work that you've done so far, like we have indicated before. Be very transparent on the use of funds. So do not say that you're going to use these funds to buy uniform when your intention is to use these funds to feed children. So be very transparent, and if possible, provide an accountability trail for the funds after use. If you are hoping to be able to sustain the donors that you have so that they continue supporting your projects, then while it might not be a requirement for them to seek that you give them an accountability report of the funds that were given, make it your priority to always provide an accountability trail of, you gave us X amount, or this year we collected a total of X, we were able to use this total of X in ABC, as opposed to government institutions that must always submit, let's say, the financial reports. Make it an onus on you towards the sponsors that have supported you to be able to convince them by showing them how the resources they pull together are used. This then helps to build the trust, which is a critical component in being able to nurture a long-lasting, sustainable relationship with your partners and donors. Also show them what they stand to gain. And what they stand to gain is not to mean that you give them something in return for what whatever contributions or whatever resources they channel your way, but you want to ensure that you show them how your story fits into their journey. So if you're approaching an organization that, let's say, has been keen on reducing maternal deaths in the community or globally, then you want to show them how by you feeding school children who are orphaned, or by you providing menstrual health kits, or by you doing whatever it is you're doing, you want to ensure that you show them how, by you meeting your objectives, it eventually wraps around them being able to meet their objectives, even if very remotely. So you must be able to show them how and what exactly they stand to gain by supporting you. So this could be dependent on the environment or the nature of what you're doing, but you want to ensure that you tie it closely to what they're doing or what they're likely to find benefits for. Sometimes this could be as simple as putting the banners or putting the institutional corporate documents or rather corporate symbols on your documents or on your website as partners or sponsors, or as you do these programs mentioning their names. Sometimes it could be as easy as that, but ensure that they're able to know how they stand to gain by supporting whatever work or project it is you are working on. And of course, always provide opportunities for further engagement of these partners and sponsors. So you want to ensure that you continue communicating to them, put them in your newsletters, curate a relationship with the partners that you're having, so that every other time that they are thinking of doing some philanthropy or they're thinking of assisting out or helping to fundraise, then you are always at the top of their minds. You can do this with the first of strategies that we have, but we'll be talking about in a slide that is coming just about next. So some of the fundraising approaches that are common at the moment is one, we can think of face-to-face, where you either sign up members or donors, you do either on the street, door by door, you visit their places, you reach out to them. You can do this in the market, you can do this around the malls. We have institutions who would put, let's say, if they're doing a campaign to feed the vulnerable, they could put a stand just outside the supermarket, so that as you come out their shopping, then they make the appeal, we are trying to feed these people and they'd really benefit from one or two items from your shopping cart, which you'd already paid for, and giving it to them in malls, open spaces, in the streets, whatever it is. So we have face-to-face. It could be via telephone, where you're making calls or reaching out to your potential sponsors, donors, partners, collaborators, and making a consideration to involve you or to have your case considered for purposes of fundraising. This could be on social media. So we have, over the TV, on radio, on posters. We have all these social media platforms that we have at the moment. So you want to use the press, on the newspapers, to be able to put out a case so that people want to consider going in that direction. And of course, in these times where social media is such a thing for across all generations, you want to take advantage of the technological givings that we have to your advantage, to leverage on your fundraising strategies and enable you really be able to get more of what it is you're looking for. Then another trend that is coming up is public profile, the use of celebrities, the use of people who are key or social or influential in the society. So you might want to go and pick on somebody who you'd imagine resonates well with the environment or with the people that you're trying to tap in for a fundraiser, so that if it's a musician who is well known and who has probably has had an interaction or an experience with the kind of with the social identity that you're trying to plug in and to filtrate, convince, persuade people to be able to contribute or to be able to participate in the fundraiser that it is you're conducting. Then also, since the onset of COVID, we have seen a lot of virtual events for purposes of fundraisers also being done. So as opposed to organizing a gala or a dinner, which is physical, we do virtual events like the one we're doing currently. And in the virtual event, we have all the people that we want to have on board, and we invite people. And during the duration in the engagements, we have performances. And then at some point, we have a fundraiser to a mobile payment platforms or to banks, where the fundraiser is done all on virtual platforms as enabled by technology. So some approaches that you might want to take on as you do your fundraiser is you can either decide to organize an event. This could be a marathon, this could be a dinner event, this could be a bike riding event, this could be a t-shirt sale, this could be, it could be either commercial or non-commercial, where you invite individuals who resonate or who subscribe to the ideologies behind the specific program that you're running, for purposes of being able to come together and be able to raise funds for that approach. We have donor relationship cultivation. We've talked about it, where you ensure that you strategize around being able to lock the donors or the sponsors that you have to be able to be continuous or perennial supporters of your programs. We have comprehensive capital campaigns. These are a bit unique because for a capital campaign is where you are solely going for a capital expenditure kind of fundraiser where you have a target goal. So as opposed to the other fundraisers where we have a target, but not necessarily an amount we are looking for. For the comprehensive capital campaigns, we'll be having an exact amount we are seeking. So if we are looking at, let's say, constructing a lab or a shelter house, then we know exactly how much we are looking at to get to be able to assist us, be able to realize that goal. And of course, many times it's actually even timed. So we are looking at getting $2 million in the next 2 months so that we're able to put up a shelter because let's say the shelter that the kids have been using at the moment is being repossessed back by the owner, something of that kind. We have accountable fundraisers where we build trust as a virtue for purposes of future fundraisers. So if we go out today and we collect some funds, then we make sure that we report back to all the people that supported our fundraiser bid, and we give them a breakdown of how much or how the resources that were generated, how they were used, what the benefit streams were there, probably do a KPI analysis report and be able to submit it to all the potential donors. This creates, again, that environment of trust and makes the donors already in our fold be willing to continue supporting our strategies and our programs. We have professional fundraisers where we seek the help of a professional fundraiser. We have individuals who have taken it as a master or as an art and a science to be able to help institutions to do fundraisers. So you might engage some of these professional fundraisers to be able to assist you organize, plan, craft, and execute your fundraiser plans. Then we have, of course, online and mobile fundraisers. We've talked about this, either a text to contribute, where we send you a text and ask you, would you be willing to support this program? If yes, please click 1 to donate, or click 2 to opt out, things of items of that kind. So that is online and mobile fundraiser. And also we have retail sales, where we opt not to just ask, but to provide something in return. So in that case, we will be out there selling a good or a service, in return get the fundraiser that will be able to achieve the goal of the fundraiser we're looking at. So what are some of the fundraising strategies then that you want to equip yourself with in being able to accomplish this? So number one, you must be able to use data and learn your donors. So what social inequities are we dealing with? What is the specific target area that you've opted for as a humanitarian or a development agency? Then map out the donors that you want or that you imagine are prospective to your case. What are the things that are keen to them? What are they interested in? How have they provided support to other humanitarian agencies before? What are the things that are keen to them or that they consider before they make such a decision? So then use the data that is available to be able to understand your donor. That will help your case when you're writing out a proposal, or even to be able to ensure that the said sponsors or donors become in your list of multiple support. Demonstrate your impact. Always ensure that for any donation that you receive in the humanitarian agency, that whatever it is you're doing, you can account for it. So you can do that by either doing a KPI reporting or taking using the beneficiaries for purposes of being able to speak out to the benefits they've gotten, but find a way to ensure that you demonstrate that indeed for the resources, the few resources you've had before, you've been able to do so much, the reason for which then you'll be seeking to get more. Prioritize donor relationship and stewardship. You must always be willing, you must always be available to also support what is critical to the donor. So if the donor wants you to be, let's say, generating or presenting reports on a said date, then you should be doing that. If the donor wants you to be able to brand your documents or your activities in a specific manner, then you should be able to do that in the course of implementing the project for which the donor has supported. So always ensure that you prioritize donor stewardship so that that relationship that is built around trust can be cultivated well. Try to automate your operational processes. Try to ensure that you automate all your processes, the ones for which you can. Items like issuing receipts or acknowledgements to the donors that do help you in your donation, ensuring that you are able to update your KPI reports so that the focus of your team is not on basic operational processes, but on being able to either get the correct donors or sponsors on board, and also to be able to ensure efficiency in the implementation of the programs that you're doing. But if the entire office team is backed up at being able to run day-to-day operations, generating invoices, receipts, and the rest of that, then that leaves you with little time to be able to ensure that you can actually show for the impact that we're talking about. For your fundraisers and for your projects, always ensure that you set SMART goals. So SMART will say the goals that you're going to set must always be specific, measurable, accurate, and timely. So ensure, realistic and timely. So ensure that the goals you're setting, they are measurable, they are specific, they are accurate, they are very realistic, and they are timely goals. So that makes it easy for you to be able to work within a defined environment to be able to arrive or to achieve the goals you have. If you're going to set your if you're going to get yourself ready for a fundraiser, then decide upfront, how much are we looking for? When do we want this amount to be realized? What exactly are we going to do with the amount as and when it is raised? Who are we going to reach out to for purposes of being able to assist us in the fundraiser? So agree on all of that. It will make it easy. So set SMART goals. Ensure you build a base of small donors. Now, many organizations are always left in the perception that you need to have a few big donors to be able to run your project. While that is a strategy in itself, it's a very flawed strategy, because in the event one of your big boys or big donors for that matter pull out their support, then you are often left open. You are not either able to continue running your day-to-day operations. You have to falter, or you have to stop or stall on the projects that you are running. So it is encouraged that you'd rather have a pool of small, consistent donors whose efforts put together or accumulated makes for the big impact of what the small big donors, few big donors would do. Ensure you explore corporate partnerships. So fundraisers must not always be about what you are given. Sometimes it could be what you are given with regards to partnerships that you create. So rather than going out and always just seeking to be given, say, the financial support, you might want to find an organization that, quote unquote, let's say, works in the same area or in the same field, or works on the same project that you are in, and they could be able to provide their support without necessarily giving you finances. For instance, if you are working towards being able to develop a rescue center, or you wanted to come up with a building that is supposed to help shelter orphaned children, then other than just going out and seeking people who are willing to give you money or bricks for purposes of building that building, you might want to go out and seek partnership with a company or an institution that works in the construction industry, and they could give you their professional support instead. So they could tell you, instead of paying the surveyor, instead of paying the structural engineer for this, we will provide those services pro bono. You will still have achieved the essence, because even if you got the money, you would have paid the structural engineer or the surveyors for the work that they do. So if a company is able to partner with you and provide in one way or another some of the benefits streaming down to you, then you still are able to get the goals that you're looking for. Always ensure that you create an annual event to ensure that your fundraising strategies are they can be, there's a plan for them. This then would allow you, the corporate sponsors of the donors, to be able to plan themselves toward those events. If they know that this organization always has a fundraiser around May of every year, then as the year starts, they can always be planning themselves by either starting to send in their donations early in time, over time, or planning towards being able to bring that one big check when the date matures. But if you start, as most organizations would do, if you start sending your request for support 1 or 2 months before the due date, then even if they will support, the amount of support will not be significant, since for them, they also have other things they're doing other than thinking about and planning to be able to support your programs. Ensure that you build a relationship with the local press. So if your impact is to go out there, if people are to hear or to see what it is that you've been doing, then you're going to need the support of the press. So as you go about, doing that construction, as you go about feeding the children, you want to ensure that you have a very versatile media team, both internal, to be able to, document your success, to be able to create a videography, photos of everything that you're doing, but also for wide population, to everybody who cares to see and to listen. You want to ensure that you have a good relationship with the local press, so that some of these pictures and videos and doings can get themselves into the space, making it easy for your potential donors to see your case, and then that creates a quick convincing initiative with them in the event that you're seeking to now narrow down and get your program sponsored. Also, ask your volunteers now for somebody who has accepted to come on board and help you to achieve whatever it is you're doing without pay. Then many humanitarian agencies fail to see the potential that these individuals have in even being able to help them raise the resources they need. That I am willing to work in a humanitarian agency without necessarily needing them to pay me for my services. That means that I probably have my own sources of incomes which are not dependent on my work here. So if you take time to also seek from your volunteers to assist in your fundraiser, then you might find that we usually have a lot of low-hanging fruits on the table that we leave as we try go out there and fight in the pool of blood with every other person who is trying to seek their programs to be raised, while we have people who could support us quarter way or halfway, or even more than halfway, depending on the financial strength of the volunteers that we have. So always make a point that the volunteers that you're having, you have sought out to them, and they've also supported, if at all, they're willing and are able to. Now, always remember to thank your donors. Now, many institutions, they remember to ask to be supported, but most of them forget to remember or forget to say thank you or to slide in a note which appreciates and acknowledges the support that was given. So always remember to thank your donors. It might be a very small gesture, but it goes a long way in being able to sustain the relationship that you create with the said donors. Then also recruit social influencers. You want to go out there and ensure that you've picked the people that are known for what they do. Talk to them and have them speak about your case. So currently we have social media, Twitter, Facebook, and all of that. Ensure across all those platforms, you have the right people speaking about your product. If it's a fundraiser that is upcoming, have the people who are known in that field or who are known to the population that you're targeting to speak about your upcoming fundraiser, and then that makes for a clear case, since the word would spread faster. I can see our time is up, so I'll just try and quickly wrap up everything we're having. So some quick fundraising methods you can think about then is, of course, recurring donations. Always think of the people you already have. Like we said, it is easier to retain the people that you already have in-house than to try getting new people. You might want to create a web page for your fundraiser so that people can always log in. It can have a timer. It can have, a score sheet which indicates how much we've been able to get in donation so far. It can have our KPIs showing over the impact we've created so far. So ensure you can do fundraiser pages. We can do crowdfunding, where we pull in together all people who support the kind of initiative we are on for purposes of being able to raise these funds. Peer-to-peer fundraiser is where we involve those individuals who either share the same mindset or one in the same field, or people who are close to us. Other people could call that fundraising, where we involve friends instead. We have networking events. We have text to give, where we send you send in messages to the selected individuals for purposes of being able to help you raise funds, and they could respond by indicating how much they're willing to support, and then that opens up the platform of engagement towards being able to reach to them and be able to collect the amounts they're willing to support our programs with. Then we also have membership campaigns. This could be in the essence of either promoting a product within the membership groupings, or straight putting it up as a fundraiser bid that we are seeking for. But I want us to talk a little bit more about some uncommon fundraising strategies that we've seen of recent. Number one, we have charity dating, or you can call it date auction. This is where I would say a ticket for you to sit with them on a date, or for you to go and watch a movie premiere with them for actors. So we have seen this happen a lot, where a celebrity who, let's say, is an actor, would invite fans who are thrilled with the thought of sitting across their favorite actor in a movie they've premiered in, to be able to watch a movie with them. And of course, for that case, they would just say, anybody who's willing to sit across me as we watch the movie premiere in which I participated in will pay X amount of money. Then for the amounts that are generated, they divert them towards the humanitarian agency, or towards the engagement of program that they're interested in. This could be towards selling a ticket for a date with them, breakfast, lunch, whatever it is. We've seen a lot of this happen of recent. We have auctions where, while I may want to contribute towards your funds drive, or to support your resource accumulation for the project you're working on, I may not necessarily be having the cash, which is what you're looking for, but instead I might be having a timepiece, or a very relic copy of some painting, let's say of Mona Lisa. And in that case, if that's the only contribution I can make, then it would mean for you, the fundraiser after that, you might want to even open up an auction to be able to get the highest bid. So people might be contributing items, or antique jewelries that are of value. Then through an auction, you again get people who are motivated towards getting those auctions, but also at a price which would go a long way in supporting the humanitarian activities or initiatives that we have in mind. We have direct mail or text to give, where we reach out to them either through mail or through their mobile phones towards being able to do this. We have fundraising, where in our agency, we could agree that everybody's supposed to through their friends, be able to raise a specific amount of resources. Then it is left upon me to go and reach out to all the friends that I have to be able to ensure that I hit the target that has been given for me and my friends. So this is where we do fundraisers through the friends that we have. Another uncommon fundraising form that is also coming up is environmental initiatives, such as tree planting, or cleaning the environment, or collecting plastic from the ocean floor. And all those agencies that have close to heart those kind of environmental initiatives would come together towards being able to do that. Then in the process, a fundraiser is created at the end of the event for purposes of being able to assist to further that course of action. Then we also have street fundraisers, a little bit and not formal, but where we just generate a fundraiser. Then we strategize our cashiers, if you may, along the streets, and then we appeal to the passersby to be able to help support the initiative that we are on. Now, just quickly, I want us to talk about the 5-step donor cultivation cycle. If you want to always have your donors working with you, so that you don't have one-time donors who support and you never see them back again, then the proposed 5-step towards being able to have your donors have a long-term relationship with you with regards to supporting your programs. Number one, you want to first identify the right donors, those who share in your in the program or initiatives that you are in. So identify the correct donors, then qualify the ones that you would be willing to work with. In qualifying them, you want to look at what it is that the donors believe in versus what do you believe in. It is imperative that for all the initiatives that you're running and for all the donors and partners you're working with, your goals are not contrary or are not in the opposite sense of what it is they believe in, because then that down the road, that will bring in complications. So you want to ensure that you qualify the donors that you want to work with to ensure that your goals, your objectives are aligned. So that makes it easy to continue working. Then you will need to ensure that you cultivate them, or you create a relational experience with them, ensuring you also show how you're willing to support whatever it is they're doing, ensuring you show them what they stand to gain by coming into a partnership for purposes of sponsorship or donations going forward, that you also show them the impact of what them supporting you will make you be able to achieve, which then is also aligned to what they're looking at. So ensure that you create a relational experience with them. Then you will now proceed to solicit from them. So we have this project upcoming, and we were hoping you are able to come on board and support us with 1, 2, 3. So you solicit out. Then you also become a good steward of the resources that have been availed to you. So if you have been given X amount, then first do accountable reporting. So ensure that they know that for every shilling that they gave, none of it was misappropriated. It was instead used for the very good thoughts that you had projected out for the use. So that is the step that we can use to be able to ensure that all our donors continue to become recurrent donors. So just further to that, you want to ensure that you add donation intervals to them, so you can provide a plan where the donations are coming in quarterly or monthly or weekly, depending on the initiatives you're working on and the amounts that are involved. Ensure you have a wide range of giving amounts. Do not insist that the donation must be 10,000. You can propose plans where if you donate this amount, then these are the benefits you get, or you can donate this alternative amount for this kind of initiative and impact and benefits. Ensure that we also have options, so we can donate in cash, we can donate in kind, we can donate through bank, we can donate via mobile platforms, we can donate via crypto. So provide alternative ways to be able to donate. Donation must not always be cash-based. Allow donors to also feel part of the process. So you want to ensure that through the impact, as you speak about what it is you're able to do, you probably allow them to also be able to tap into the benefits or into the impact that you're able to create in the society. This could be by allowing them to probably even have a portal in your account where they can go in and see the history of the donations they've made over time. They can see the amount of impact they've been able to facilitate through your organization in their donations. They can be able to perhaps be able to resonate or to have some of the beneficiaries directly associate the benefits they're getting directly from the donors, that kind of thing. So ensure that you allow them to be able to have a long-term benefit stream, which they're able to look at and use it also for their purposes. Now, as we finalize, assuming you've done all of that and you're now ready to do your funding pitch, you want to do your proposal, or you want to write an open proposal for funding, then what do you want to do? Number one, ensure that you keep your pitch very simple. Number one, what is the time frame that the funders are working with? What is the time frame that you are working with? What is the precise initiative you want to engage in? Are you asking for a specific amount? Are you going out to all donors, or you have approached this specific donor at this point in time? Of course, research on who you're going to present this to, so that as you put up your case, remember we said you have to create the emotional appeal. You are able to calculate or to curate the case in a way that meets or really gets the donor to be coined around the initiative that you're working with. So ensure that you know the target audience, you research on the target audience, and you're able to present your pitch in the best way that would meet or that would move the donors or the sponsors to want to buy your case. Number two, of course, use compelling visuals, images, illustrations. They say that, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So rather than writing a long page of everything you've done, you might want to show that in visuals, in videos, in pictures. If you're saying you have done some school feeding programs, rather than writing a long list of how the school feeding program looked like, you might want to take a picture of your organization actually doing the school feeding program, attach a video of how you've done this, then that could make for a successful pitch. Tell a compelling story. So when you're telling a compelling story, again, we said, rather than focusing on group work that you've done, you want to focus on individual successes that have been seen. So if we're saying that we've supported, the women in the society with their maternal health, then rather than saying we supported this and that group, you want to pick 1, 2, 3 women that were at their very vulnerable points, and you were able to come in and support them in actually providing for whatever it is you're saying you provide. So tell a comparing story. Keep your presentation very short. Remember, we said you're not the only one who is sending out a pitch. You're not the only one who is seeking to be supported. So you do not want to write an overcomplicated document. If anything, we said keep the pitch simple. So allow time for demonstrations if needed. Allow time for people to ask questions and answers. So where have you implemented these? So make your presentation very short. Do not forget while giving that pitch to actually ask for the money, which is what the essence of the presentation is all about. So ensure that you are able to tell them how much you're looking for in funding. Ensure you tell them how and where you are going to use this amount. Ensure you tell them the expected impact of the program as and when it comes to conclusion, what will happen in the event this money runs out, the long-term plan that you have for the initiative that is at hand. And of course, the pitch must be based on current data. So if you're going to tell them that 10% of the population is suffering from ABC, then you must make sure that at the current moment, as you're making that pitch, the numbers have not tilted away from the number you are actually discussing. So ensure that you have the accurate data to be able to really drive in your point. Now, an effective pitch should be direct, appeal directly, and create a relational message for purposes of being able to sway the prospective donor or partner towards your case. It should instill a sense of urgency rather than just telling them that we're seeking to raise $2 million. You want to tell them, we are seeking to raise 5,000 USDs by the next Thursday, or by the end of the month, or by this duration, or this is so urgent that if we don't have it in time, then this is likely to not work in our favor, or is the intended beneficiaries are supposed to face more harm. Be very specific. How much are you looking for? And of course, as you put your case, like I'd given an example before, rather than telling them that you're seeking support to be able to build a kitchen, tell them that you're seeking a support to be able to feed somebody who is vulnerable and needs that food. That makes for a more compelling case. And of course, focus on that one person who you have seen tremendous support or tremendous benefits for, rather than focusing on the entire group. What you should not miss on your pitch, your vision, what value you're proposing to give out there, what problem you've identified that has made you pick on that initiative. Who is the target? Who are the intended beneficiaries? How are they going to benefit? What opportunities does it bestow for them if you get the support you're looking for? Focus on individual stories rather than group stories. What is the solution you're providing? Yes, there's a lot of maternal deaths in the said population. What is the proposal you're giving? How is the impact going to be realized? How is the support that you're seeking going to help realize that said impact? Hence, providing a solution for the profit that you indicated. How are you going to be able to fund this model? Is the amount you're seeking sufficient to fund the entire program, or is just as a jumpstart towards being able to make some impact or inroads? So provide the revenue or business model. How are you going to work around it? How will we monitor? How will we track? What will be the reporting sequence? What is the team that is involved? Do we have the relevant expertise that is able to actually run with the initiative? If at all it's a technical or a technically abled project, then do you have the right people on board to be able to really see the fruition of that initiative? Then I want us to, as we finish, to speak about charity fraud, which is we have cases of some unscrupulous humanitarian agencies or posing to be humanitarian agents seeking out funds from the public. They're given in good faith, but they do not use it as it should. So using deceptive means to get money from people and not using it for the purposes that are intended, or not even having a crisis as was given. Engaging in deceitful business acts. So you might have an organization posing as if they're trying to support children go to school, yet when the money and the resources is available to them, they engage in money laundering, or they engage in all the other vices of the society. So you want to ensure that does not happen. Now, humanitarian organizations that engage in the humanitarian fields are often caught in issues of ethics. So many times you find yourself, let's say, asking for funds, sometimes from organizations that do not necessarily support the same culture or thought process you are in. For instance, I want us to assume that our humanitarian agency is towards promoting health, healthy eating in the society. So we are out there trying to seek funding so that we promote healthy eating in the society. Then the organization that is willing to support our initiative is, let's say, an organization that works in the fast foods industry, which, as we know, does not provide healthy food options. So at that point in time, the issue of ethics is raised as to, do you still accept that donation? Do you take it back because it doesn't, the products that are being proposed or that are being provided by the donor does not fit the bill of what you are proposing? So those are issues that have always come up. So how donors should choose beneficiaries, and how the cases where beneficiaries should decide whether to reject or to accept donations that are being given. There is always a need for accountability. As we have said, this helps to build trust. But there are cases where, as a consequence of the donation you get from a donor or a partner, they might need, or they might have very strict reporting requirements, which might not be consistent with your operations at the organization. So that might create an ethics issue where you are not able to meet the requirements of the donor. What are some of the acceptable marketing practices for grant seekers? Yes, you have decided you want some donations or you are raising some funds. How are you going to do it in a way that is ethical? How are you going to market your need for it so that, for instance, you do not put naked pictures of children online because you are trying to clothe them, so that you do not step on the rights of others while trying to achieve this benefit that you're looking for? How also do you sustain the donor's intent? Some donors might have a tied benefit or an unsaid expected benefit by them helping you to support your programs. So then how do you sustain that? That has also been an ethical question that we get to deal with every so often. And as we finish in the very last slide, just a case to illustrate on cases of ethics and fraud around donation. So this case happened locally in Kenya, where for a marathon that was hosted in a county in our country, about that amount was collected, 13.7 million. But of that amount, only about 562,000 shillings was used towards actually assisting or doing the work for which the fundraiser had been set for. So this was an events fundraiser where a marathon was organized. But of the amounts that were raised, 13.76, we only saw about 500, a paltry percentage of the actual being used towards the actual fundraiser. And of course, there are many other cases we are able to refer to across the country. So it is imperative for you as the humanitarian actors, stakeholders, developers, in your respective works, as you seek out, ensure that you submit a pitch that will guarantee you, or that will give you higher stakes or higher chances of being able to get the finances that you're looking for. But as and when you get them, it's also important that you make good use of the resources to be able to create that relationship we're talking about, to be able to give confidence and see impacts of the work you're doing. Then that puts you at a higher pedestal to be able to continually be able to get support for your projects and programs. In the interest of time, I would want to stop there and allow for the question and answer session for the participants who may have any. So I'll welcome back, is it Diana, to assist us with the Q&A session, if at all. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Jashon, for that extensive coverage on what we've been able to cover in terms of fundraising. I do apologize to our participants for we've been able to go a little bit beyond time. However, we will take just a few questions in the Q&A section. I'll start with an anonymous attendee who says, how do you deal with the vested interests when raising funds for a community initiative?
Do you want me to take one at a time?
Yes. I'd rather we tackle one at a time. Although some questions I will combine as they
Thank you.
are
So,
similar.
for those donors and partners who would have vested interest, what you want to do is you want to remain objective to your core. So you sort out to get funds to be able to support a specific objective or a specific area. Then you want to ensure that the said donors or partners, their aims and the objectives are also in line with what you're doing, like we've discussed, so that you don't engage with donors or partners who might create or might cause a conflict of interest. Like the example I was giving, where we are seeking out to provide healthy food options, then we engage with an organization that is selling fast foods, which clearly is not in the definitions of healthy foods, is not, then that could create contradiction. But if you're working with donors, partners, sponsors who are in the same mindset as we are, whose objectives align to our objectives, then you find that it becomes very easy and the interest naturally would align. Then in that case, there would be no vested interest, which is contrary to what our interest also is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jashon. I'm going to combine the next couple of questions because as much as there is funding, a lot of questions are on how to access. So we have Egidio, as well as, okay, so says, when it comes to grants, how can humanitarian organizations have access to platforms, the top 10, the top 10 funding platforms? We also have someone else, Modi, also asks in the same line, the same question. Is there a site for looking for grants from charity homes or other sites? We do also have another participant who also asks the same on how to access. So Tura asks, how do we differentiate partners with donors in terms of when it comes to accessing the funding as well? So there's a lot of how to access this. So maybe you can just address that.
Thank you, Dana. So I think, like I mentioned before, it's very important that first you align yourself with partners, donors, sponsors who are in the same frame of mind with what it is you are doing. So I will not say that there's a top 10 list of sponsors or donors that we have out there. As a matter of fact, we say that you need to work towards generating a big list of small donors rather than a small list of big donors. So you need to have as many as you can. So what you want to do for you who is trying to find the top 10 best sponsors or the top 10 donors that you want to work with, what you want to do is first crystallize on what area of societal inequities are you on. Is it education? Is it healthcare? Is it gender disbalance? What is it? What is the exact cause that you're working on? Then with that cause in mind, seek out to find all the organizations that support or that are working in that cause. Okay, so we have organizations that solely focus in supporting educational programs. We have donors that solely work towards supporting other menstrual health or mental health on children or women or disabled, like that. So now, if we are going to say that we have a top 10 list, then we will be finding probably, if the top 10 is generated by a factor of how much donations they have given, then you will find that while they may be in your top list, they do not focus on your initiative area. So first narrow down on your initiative area. Then as you do your search, go to search on people or donors or sponsors or partners who focus on that initiative area. To the other question that was asking the difference between a donor, a sponsor, a partner, I think the difference is here and there. It all depends on how you decide to look at it. Many times, donors would be people who would provide the resources that you're looking for, but they do not want to be engaged into a day-to-day operation. So the moment they've provided their, whether it's finances, whether it's materials, then whatever you want to do with it is up to you. So those, many times, those would fall into the donors category. Partners and sponsors always have a hand in how you do things. So partners might not necessarily provide the financial support. Sometimes they would. They can sometimes provide you with the technical support that you might need. Like the example where I was giving, where we are doing a construction for, let's say, our kitchen, then instead of them giving us money or bricks or cement, they provide us with the structural engineers, with the architectural design, because that is what they do. So an organization that, let's say, is already in the educational sector would say that because your interest is also to support school-going children go to school, why don't we give you 10 free slots in our school so that then you have 10 children out of your hands who are going to school. So that will be a partner, because for them, you'd be working with them for a long time. And also they will be almost in your operations. They will be needing either update reports, KPI reporting of how you spend, what are the impact, how is the program going, that kind of thing. But the difference is there's a very thin line between who a donor, who a partner really would be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I do have an interesting question here from Peter. So Peter asks, is it necessary to develop a fundraising policy for the institution, and who is responsible for the fundraising? And on the second bit of the question, in terms of who is responsible for the fundraising, I'd like to follow up that question with a question from Florian. So Florian does say, I don't understand quite well the role of influencers. Can you explain?
Hi, Diana, I've lost you.
Sorry, I'll repeat the question. So there's the question from Peter. Is it necessary to develop a fundraising policy for the institution? And who is responsible for fundraising? And following that question, I'd like to just follow that up with one from Florian, who asks, I don't understand quite well the role of influencers. Can you please explain?
Thank you. So is it necessary to develop a fundraising policy? Yes. Remember, policies are guiding documents of how we operate in our organization. So who is responsible for the fundraising policy is either the board or the head of the humanitarian agency, depending on the chart of control or on the organizational chart of the organization. The fundraising policy would give guidance as to how we go about our fundraising processes, what are the acceptable limits, what are the acceptable approaches. So that will give that guidance so that any other time we know what is expected whenever we are doing a fundraising drive. Who is responsible for fundraising? Again, that will depend on the organizational chart or the organogram of the organization. If projects are clustered within departments so that a department runs a specific initiative, then perhaps it will be upon them to seek for funding. But the common practice is an organization will be seeking for funds or for resources as an organization rather than as a project team or as a department within the said organization, in which essence, the ultimate responsibility to get funding will be on the head of the organization, of course, working with the team that he has to be able to do the draft, make follow-up, and be able to eventually access the funds. The last question was the role of influencers in fundraising. So if, giving an example, let's say we are doing a fundraising on social media. So we have, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all of those. And we want our appeal to reach out to as many people as we can. And I believe we've actually seen this before, where a media celebrity or a radio presenter or a musician would post on their timelines, let us help support the case of ABC who was involved in an accident, or let us support this organization in being able to do ABC. And since the social influencer is somebody who is known to many people or who appeals to many people, and many people want to buy into their story or do feel convinced by them telling them to do 1, 2, 3, then it makes it very easy for the organization to actually achieve its target, as opposed to you going out by yourselves and selling out. Of course, your reach would be limited only to the customers or to the clientele that are already in your social or corporate groupings. If you did this through a social influencer, then you are tapping into the networks that they have. Of course, for social influencers, it works best when your target audience for the fundraiser is individuals rather than corporates, since corporates are not known to make emotional decisions. So if your target was, let's say, you're trying to raise amount X to a cancer patient, and you'd want the masses to be able to come in together, then you might want to use a person who is known to the target that you're seeking out. So if, let's say, your target market is Nigeria, then you would want to use Yemi Alade, or some known Nigerian name that people adore, and then you use her space or her Twitter, her Facebook, her social media platforms to be able to put that out. And of course, all her fans, just for the respect and for the adoration that they have of her, they might find themselves contributing, as opposed to if you had put it on your page where only the people who follow you are able to see and share. So you get to tap into the networks of the celebrities or the influencers to be able to get that. But like I'm saying, it majorly works when your target for the fundraiser is individuals rather than corporates. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jashon. We'll take one last question, and this is from Abdirizak. The rest of the questions, participants, we will be answering them in our community forum, which we have been able to share the link with you. So we encourage you to engage with us, and we do have very interesting discussions there, including on resource mobilization and fundraising. So the rest of the questions, because there are too many and we have run out of time, we've gone beyond time, we will be able to address them on our community forum as well. And if you're interested, remember this is a course, a training workshop that we do have, fundraising and resource mobilization for NGOs. And I did mention the dates. The physical training workshop at the Humanitarian Global Training Center starts from 6th to 10th November. That is 5 days. This is next week. And then we have from 6th to 17th November, 10 days online via Zoom. And kindly, I have shared the link with you to be able to register for this course, as well as the link, well, if you'd like to learn more about this training workshop. So our last question for the day is from Abdirizak Mohammed. So Abdirizak Mohammed says, how can organizations effectively measure the return on investment of their fundraising efforts and adjust their strategies according to optimal results? I do apologize, participants. We have lost Jashon. But however, like I've mentioned, our questions will be answered in the Q&A, in the community forum. We have been able to share the link several times with you on the chat section. So do sign up for the community forum, where we'll be able to share more on the questions that were asked today. With that said, I'd like to thank our attendees for attending today's webinar. Thank you especially to those of us who've been quite engaging in the chat section as well as in the Q&A section. I'd like to thank the entire Humanitarian Global team for having facilitated this webinar, including having it live streamed on Facebook, as well as our expert for the day, Jashon. And when you sign up this course, when you take up this course with us, you will be able to have not just Jashon, but several other experts who will be able to take you through not just what today Jashon has covered, but an in-depth analysis of fundraising and resource mobilization. With that said, I bid you farewell. And remember, we always have webinars every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. East African time, and I look forward to having you next week. With that said, have a good rest of your day and feel free to exit the webinar at your own time. Thank you.
My name is Adam Mohammed. I am a humanitarian person and a farmer at the same time. I'm also a Nigerian. My journey as a humanitarian started sometimes around 2016 in the NYSC camp. You know, when you finish your degree program, you need to go for a year training. So in Nigeria, we call it NYSC, National Youth Service Corps. So while at the camp, I have this staff of CUSO International. CUSO International actually is a Canadian humanitarian organization that is working towards ensuring no poverty and no equality among the community in all. So they approached the serving corps members at the camp, telling them to come and volunteer with the organization in providing services in certain communities that they will be posted to. At first, I wasn't interested because I am a farmer. Then I realized that there are several areas where I can render my service to. I can also render my service to youths, encouraging them to have a sustainable means of livelihood in agriculture. There and then, I key in, I applied, I became a volunteer. So after volunteering with CUSO International, I then had the interest of working as a humanitarian person. I worked with CUSO International for a year, and thereafter I moved for my second studies